and welcome everyone. It's great to have you online. Today is the fifth session of our Sustainable Living Leadership Program. Today is October 22nd, and we're finalizing our first cohort of this leadership program. It's great that you all made it, and we're excited for hearing a lot from you and celebrating together what you have achieved in this course. First of all, maybe you see that our first slide looks a little bit different than during the other sessions. Those are all pictures from you. Those all show scenes of the Living the Change events, sustainable living events all around the world that happened in the past 2 weeks. And we're very excited to hear more from you today, as well as we're excited to have honorable speaker today, that is Reverend Fletcher Harper, the Executive Director of Green Faith, who will join us today. But before we go into more details, we of course start with a spiritual opening that I'm inviting you all into now.
Every time I turn my gaze to thine earth, I am made to recognize the evidences of thy power and the tokens of thy bounty. And when I behold the sea, I find that it speaketh to me of thy majesty and of the potency of thy might and of thy sovereignty and thy grandeur. And at whatever time I contemplate the mountains, I am led to discover the ensigns of thy victory and the standards of thine omnipotence.
Thank you. And this comes to us from the Baha'i tradition. So today our session is focused on evaluation and certification in this leadership program. And what you can see here is the agenda for today. We first want to look into how was this leadership program for you, and are excited to see a summary of your responses in the survey. Second, we're gonna look into the curriculum once more and actually look at each session. What have we learned? What were the insights from each session of the past 8 weeks? Number 3 is the week of living the change. This is the moment where we'll hear stories and experience from 6 local organizers from Canada, US, Netherlands, Nigeria, and India. Looking very much forward to that. We then have our very famous breakout groups, where we'll have some questions for you for summarizing your course experience and your learnings, as well as things that you want to feedback to us. And number 5, we hope you're excited and ready for the certification ceremony that we'll have today, and where we're very happy to have Reverend Fletcher Harper joining us from Indonesia currently, who's joining us in this moment. And we will then close the meeting, of course, with a spiritual closing and sending you off back into your responsibilities and into your work. With that being said, I hope you're all ready and all the technical setup is done. You're very experienced with that now, so we felt we don't need to repeat that. But in case you have a question, technical question, please refer to Kristen Barker. Kristen, can you wave once or say hello? So if you write a message to Kristen, she can help you with technical problems. Laurie and I will facilitate the session today, and Irene will, of course, help us with the spiritual moments of this session. So this is the team and the agenda for today. And with no further ado, we're now going into how was the leadership program for you.
So deep appreciation to all those who took the time to give us some initial feedback. We'll be conducting a more formal and comprehensive survey. You'll get a link to that later this week. And so really encourage you all to fill that out. And I wanted to share some of the initial reflections that people had, just so that you can hear the words of each other. So sources of inspiration. I'll just read a little bit from various folks. I actually reached out to churches and felt happier doing so instead of just working with my Buddhist community. I like this aspect a lot. I super appreciated the very moving first interfaith service with the Stiltwalkers and multi-faith voices. Another person said, I found that the greenest of my acquaintance is Jewish, and she has become a good friend and a great source of encouragement and inspiration. So people were speaking to the interfaith aspect, the community aspect, and also inspired by the territory. This one person said the small group discussions and the chance to connect with others of different faiths, sharing the same vision. One person said inventing an event conducted during the week of Living the Change is a very unique initiative in our rural community. This event combined faith and ecology was very new to them. Other people, when we talked a lot about their motivation for their own personal change and how that was influenced by the program thus far. I recognize the broader movement of which I am a part. This isn't something unique to me or my situation. This is a global movement. Personally, I have committed myself to organizing training packages and educating the rest of my community. I've already brought in the environmental advocacy organizations under Green Faith, and the community members have been very welcoming of the concept and willing to join me. So I feel more motivated to make my own change. And there were some insights as well. I'm not so distant from the hurricanes, and realized that my behavior over the years has contributed to the impacts on my friends. They suffer. For instance, those in North Carolina. And I have contributed along with other people who haven't changed their behaviors in contributing to climate change. Other people were moved by the power of personal commitment in doing something because it is critical to the well-being of others. And then a number of you talked about the challenges that you faced. So I'll read a few of those comments. One community that I've been a part of for a long time seems to be not ready to engage in these conversations right now. Within another community I practice with, I found people who think about environmental issues but haven't discussed them much. I hope we can begin to open up this topic for more discussion. Another person, I feel the need to be careful not to push communities too hard out of their comfort zone, too fast, or the entire project and impact could be permanently affected. Another person, I live where there's a high awareness over all of this topic, but not good behavior. People drive cars a lot, and even in a small town, and they're big airline users. Another person, I was frankly shocked at the limited response to climate change in some of the faith communities I heard from. Another person, attention is fragmented. People are busy and the political landscape is overwhelming. It's hard to get folks to focus on this issue. And then in speaking in terms of implementation, the challenge is to keep the changes in place. It's like dieting. The challenge is to keep the weight off. And then another person concluded by saying, I feel like my batteries are recharged to join and keep going. For the community, although there are many challenges, a seed has been sown from which many good things can arise. I'm certainly fired up about the potential. Some of the resources that you especially found valuable are how to talk to people about climate change and living the change, and the talking points. A number of you also pointed to a particular resource, an analysis that we provided. Can you forward one slide? This particular slide, can you scroll? I can't quite see the bottom of it. Yeah, from Rosemary Randall, about the dynamic of learning about climate change and then where people tend to go and maybe what may be an evolutionary process for many. In terms of needs, we heard from you that you want to stay connected with this initiative and have lots of questions about how to move forward, and some way to communicate about the impact of our collective changes, for instance, aggregate emissions and reductions just from our community. So again, thank you to all of you who responded. And I wonder if we have just one minute left, I just wonder if any of you feel like you want to add anything along any of those categories that are on the slide. So sources of information, motivation for change, challenges, resources, insights, or needs. That's for the benefit of those of you who are on the phone. So if you can just raise your hand, and then I'll unmute you and you can let us know. Anyone like to contribute more? If you're not careful, I'm going to pick on the people I know. Say something. Andrew, you're out there. Okay, I won't put Andrew on the spot. We'll leave it at that for now. And again, really look forward to your feedback on the survey link that'll come out later.
Perhaps if people have an urge to write anything in the chat, that would be great.
Agreed. Yeah, please feel free. Please feel encouraged to do that. It's, you know, one thing that as I looked at this thing overall, I just felt like, you know, it's very clear with all these different categories of inspiration, challenges, resource, insights, motivations, how that changes, the needs that you have. We're very much in a learning community. We're in a learning process together, and that is very, very clear at this point. So thank you for all of you for being part of that. So back to you, Caroline.
Thanks a lot, Christine, for this summary, and thanks everyone who gave us their feedback via the survey on short notice. So appreciated that a lot. Now let's look back at what we have learned in this course, and I'm handing over to Laurie for that.
So we're going to recap the sessions that we've had, and you'll remember we've had 4 online sessions so far, which we're going to recap. Session 5 wasn't really a session, it was your local events, and we're now on well, 6 in the slide, but the online session 5. So I think we'll just hear from those first 4, and first of all from Kristin in the session on why it matters. Kristin, you're muted.
Very good. Always tricky, that one. Yeah, so in that first session of why it matters, why this particular initiative would focus on the intersection of the climate crisis, our faith communities, and behavior. That's the place in which Living the Change operates. And so we welcomed Kate Power, an expert on sustainable consumption and behavior change from the KR Foundation, and Lindsay Fielder Cook, a climate representative from the UN Quaker office. And so here are some of the highlights. Not overstating, climate change represents a global mega threat to humanity. We all are quite familiar with this by now. To avoid the worst effects, broad scale, unprecedented, and comprehensive change is required. So on that behavior change element, reductions in household emissions accumulate. They serve to buy time and reduce pressure on other strategies, perhaps especially geoengineering or planetary hacking. Spiritual leaders and communities of faith have a unique and powerful influence in shaping our choices in daily living. They have an opportunity to confer a sense of meaning and morality to our daily life choices. So in that context, in that intersection, then faith leaders and community members in particular can signal the reality and priority of the climate crisis, the moral necessity of lifestyle choices to changing course, the fact that these changes accumulate and matter, they are relevant, we do have agency, then the wisdom through experience, the challenges and benefits of making change. And for communities in particular, the community aspect of it, less so the leader aspect, offer emotional and practical support to one another. This is in my tradition, this is the power of Sangha, the power of congregations. So through words and actions, faith communities can shift culture and have a unique opportunity to do that and establish a new normal. And Lori brought to us this understanding of letting our lives speak. So that was session 1.
Thank you, Kristen. And the second session was on changing our behaviour, and we were supposed to have 2 speakers, Linda Stegg, who is a professor working on the psychology of pro-environmental behaviour, and Ro Randall, who is the inventor of carbon conversations and is a psychotherapist. Ro wasn't able to be with us on the call, but we recorded an interview with her afterwards. And if you remember, I delivered her, well, no, I spoke to her slides on the call. So I think one of the first things that came from particularly Ro's presentation is that behavior, when we talk about behavior change, actually we're really talking about personal change, because behavior is part of ourselves. It's part of our individual and group identities and our values. And so when we try to change it, it's strongly defended. And climate messaging provokes those defenses. When we tell people that something means they need to change, then the defenses come up. So it's not happening, I can't make a difference, it's their fault, it's too late. All of these things are likely to come up when we tell people change is needed. And change is much easier when it's aligned with who we think we are, with our values. And also when it's easy, of course. So when it's supported by the practical circumstances, whether it's the availability of food and low energy homes or services, and when it's easy to walk and cycle and so on. And then most people change by developing the ability to shape their own lives. Ro used the word agency. I like using the word agency. Ro talked about, when we're talking to people, it's not trying to persuade them. It's the most important thing is having empathy with them and helping them to develop their own agency. And the best way to influence, if influencing is what we're about, is to model the behavior and to give people the opportunity to experience them. And I think that's really what we've been trying to do, particularly with our vegan feasts. So.
Thank you, Laurie, for summarizing session number 2. I'm taking over from here, talking about the session of narratives of transformation, communicating sustainable living. Here we had 3 different speakers. That was Jill Cubitt, the founder of Dear Tomorrow, George Marshall of Climate Outreach, and Rob Barbera, a Dharma teacher from the UK. So we learned about the power of storytelling when it comes to communicating sustainable living. And Jill introduced to us an approach to making this personal and to having a generational perspective of this by, for example, addressing a future generation or a future self. And at the same time, it's important to making it public. So having, formulating your own story, narrative, but also sharing that with others. And that's the project that Dear Tomorrow that she presented to us. And then we heard from George Marshall, who did a research with different faith groups on communicating sustainable living and shared with us a short summary, which are the 10 findings. I'm just recapping those. 1, it starts with faith. It doesn't start with climate, doesn't start with science, but it should start with faith. 2nd, talking about sustainable living in faith communities needs to be unique and special, something new, something else. He also found that all faith communities responded that this is simply the right thing to do. And some of you have responded to that in the survey as well, or in other comments saying, this is what you learned. It's the right thing to do. It's good to hear that. Number 4, climate change is on one side, but it's not the entire picture. We need to look at the whole picture of what makes life a good life, what is important to people. And this is also what later on Robert Breyer referred to. Faith communities aspire to have good behavior. So there's that intrinsic motivation and need. Focus on gratitude for creation or earth, what the earth is sharing with us, but also for that life. Focus on moderation and allow mindfulness. That's something which we found, in many traditions. Number 9 was the connectedness. So being able to do that as a community, being connected with others. 10 is the difficult big steps, something we may not expect. So it's not only the small steps, but it's the radical changes that can truly make a difference for our own lives and for communicating these behaviors, making it a struggle, a jihad, some may even say. Number 11 was the theme of waste and health. Those seem to be themes that correspond with many faith communities and communities. So having a narrative that also talks about waste or wasting something that is actually good, and also health of health in our own lives. And part of the joy of this initiative could be to gain and share skills, for example, in practically doing things, installing a solar roof, starting a vegetable garden, etc. So that's part of how we can communicate sustainable living. George also shared with us on the messengers. We normally trust messengers that are like us. So try to find people, a good spokesperson and good messengers for your, for those stories and narratives. For example, faith leaders or community leaders or persons that inspire. And we should have messages that build bridges and not walls. I think that speaks for itself. The third part of that session was then a very inspiring talk or teaching by Robert Breyer. And he opened some areas of inquiry that we should ask ourselves as existential questions before actually going into formulating those narratives. So the first was, what is nature? Why do we care? What can I draw from to support radical lifestyle changes? In the second area, what is a human being? What are my virtues? What is my capacity to stand against the mainstream culture? So those 3 very different approaches, but yet maybe they interconnect a lot for you, were shared with us in that third session. And I'm handing over to Irene for the recap of session number 4.
Hi. So this is We Can Do This Together, Engaging Community. And I was really happy to get this one because it's my favorite. In one of the earlier sessions, after John McCain had died, this quote was read from Hemingway. Today is only one day in all the days that will ever be. But what will happen in all the other days that ever come can depend on what you do today. So how do we lead from that? In Brene Brown's new book, Dare to Lead, she quotes Joseph Campbell. The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. And then she said, own the fear, find the cave, and write a new ending for yourself, for the people you are meant to serve and support for your culture. Choose courage over comfort. Choose what whole hearts over armor, and choose the great adventure of being brave and afraid at the exact time. So this is the prequel to what this session was about. Perhaps all or many of you came into these sessions with bravery. I did and didn't. But as the weeks progressed, I knew I had to lead my community in some way. I had to choose the great adventure of being brave and fearful at the same time. In this session, the main point was focusing on our 6 approaches to change. And if we haven't gotten that point yet, we have learned that plying people with information and facts is not likely way to change attitudes and change behaviors. So the brief description of the 6 ways of change that we are following are: 1, we approach religious and spiritual leaders who are committed and involved. And in my case, I approached a spiritual leader earlier, John Rockwell, who was leading a retreat that I was going to, and presented him the idea that we would present something about living the change at the retreat, and he agreed. Number 2, narratives and communication that position sustainable living as an embodiment of values and a moral response to a crisis. So here we had the opportunity, loud and clear. The IPCC report came out 5 days before our retreat and before Living the Change Week. So the narrative was very easy, and it was included in the fact that we're in retreat and we're talking about compassion and talking about how do we care about our sacred world. Here was an easy narrative. Most everyone had read the papers and wanted to act. So that was an easy number 2. Number 3, faith and spiritual community activities and education that prompt sustainable lifestyles. This is really simple. This was eating, and a lot of us did this. We created vegan meals. We held them, and we all loved joining together and eating and talking over delicious dinners, and we were creating activities that people wanted to attend. 4 is peer-to-peer coaching. We learn from each other horizontally. I attended a church in my local area, the Hudson Valley in New York, and they wear these lanyards. These are hanging all the time at the church so that there's a sense of community, the people that belong there. And when they're there, it helps identify them. This is something that I've learned peer-to-peer from just amongst being with others. This wasn't something coming from the top down from a spiritual leader. In Buddhist tradition, we have a sangha or community, and this one is about looking to each other and gaining insight from one another. 5, public celebration. This is so important, how we make space for celebration. You can see I love to make bread, and it's essential for all of us, and it's inherent in our faith traditions that we have public celebrations and we have holidays that are built into our cultures, that it's a given. And we can celebrate, have a friendly meal after or as part of an event, and being together, breaking bread. 6, connecting individual system change, connecting the individual and system change. Feeling what we are doing is connected to a bigger whole. And I think we all felt this in being part of this leadership training. We were all part of a group proper, and we were inspired by one another. And we were doing things in the same week, and that gave us more power and sustained us. Knowing that we're experientially things are happening at the same time. Someone may ask you at the end of the day, what did you get from this leadership training? What was your takeaway? And I'd like to think that the takeaway is that we do it together, we strengthen each other, and it's more fun, and that's why it works. Thank you.
Thank you so much, dear colleagues, for summarizing, and I hope it was helpful and useful for all participants to hear this again, to maybe be reminded of some sessions that you attended and to be inspired to listen to those sessions that you could not attend. They're all available for you in our YouTube playlist. And I want to then take this moment to look at the, so to say, session number 5, which was your local events. And I'm very happy that among the participants, some have accepted to present to you all about the week of living the change and how that was for them. So we'll hear in a moment stories from around the world and experiences. And I ask all the presenters to get ready with your video on and your audio on, which we'll activate in a moment. But just to share with all of you a bit of an overview of what happened globally. We actually had 75 local sustainable living or living the change events in 24 countries across 6 continents. And that's quite something. I mean, you can be proud of yourself. We can be happy that in the first year of this initiative, we can reach to so many countries and being connected in this 1 week. And you see here some countries, and I didn't place the United States as the biggest because it's the biggest, that's what some people think, but more that it's this word cloud actually is generated by the amount of events in each country. So we had about 28 events in the United States, then we had 10 in the United Kingdom, 10 in Australia, 7 in Uganda, and then you see all the other countries here as well. It was really widespread, which is fantastic. And we also had a really diverse religious representation. We counted the religion of the organizers, not of the events, but we actually only collected who was organizing these events. And you'll see here, well, there's the Catholic majority, but you'll see many, many traditions. Anglican, Hindu, Buddhist, Catholic, general Christian, so those who refer to themselves as general Christian, Muslim organizers, Jewish organizers, multi-faith, Presbyterian, Protestant, Quaker, spiritual, and many more. All those small pies are not even named here, but just to say it's truly multi-faith what we're doing here. And this is really, really nice. And we thank you for organizing all this. And now you're surely excited to hear some examples of what has happened around the world. And we're going to start in Canada. And I'm asking Andrew, I hope you're online and you have your audio and video ready. Andrew, to start sharing with us about his day of mindfulness with the Thich Nhat Hanh Order of Interbeing.
Thank you, Caroline. Thank you, everyone. We had 8 days ago what's called in the Thich Nhat Hanh Buddhist tradition a day of mindfulness. We had 17 people total at the Shambhala Buddhist Center in Mahone Bay, Nova Scotia. But there were also participants who were new to meditation and from different backgrounds. We had silent meditation, we had guided meditations. We wrote a love letter to the earth, or alternatively a letter to the future. That's what you see in the picture. People are writing their letters to tomorrow or their love letters to the earth. We emphasized connection. In fact, the day was called Connecting with the Earth, Connecting with One Another. Thich Nhat Hanh has a wonderful saying that we are the earth. The earth is us, and that everything depends on that realization. And we think people understood that. We also emphasized community, community building. And we tried not to be heavy-handed about what we could or should be doing, but at the end of the day, when we did what we call a sharing circle, what people were going to take away, one person said, well, there was a not very subtle call to action, and we hear it. I do want to mention very briefly one other event. My wife and I, during the week of Living the Change, hosted a potluck vegan dinner here in Nova Scotia for a dozen of our friends. And because it was a potluck, they were all involved in preparing some sort of vegan dish, which was new for most, if not all of them. And it was a wonderful meal. Everyone enjoyed it. Again, we weren't heavy-handed at all. People know the reasons to move in that direction. And just the other night, two of those people cooked a vegan dinner for Nancy and me, and someone else just told us yesterday that she's been eating in that way ever since we had that potluck. So we had a lot of fun with these events. We think everyone else did. Thank you all.
Thank you for sharing, Andrew. That's wonderful. We're now moving to Nigeria and to Douglas, who's sharing with us from Lagos about his interfaith dialogue meeting that he organized. And I hope he's on the call. Douglas, can you hear us?
I am.
Wonderful. I'll let you share about your event.
I'm here. Hello? Can you hear me?
Wonderful.
That's nice. My name is Douglas Omori. I'm the Executive Director for Center for Early Green Education. I'm a Christian. Actually, we held an interfaith meeting. On that day, before building up to the event, I was quite apprehensive because Nigeria is not, we are actually divided along ethnic lines, religious lines. So people felt a bit skeptical about coming to a meeting that had to do with other religions. But after a lot of assurances, they now said, okay, that they could come. And when they came, it was very exciting because we had people from somebody who spoke from the Christian perspective, an Anglican priest who is a professor of medicine. So he really drive home about the reasons behind most of the scientific things concerning the environment, and also he shared that the reason for the gathering, that from his own perspective, that responsibility is what he really holds in mind, that we need to be responsible for the earth. That responsibility is the ability to respond. It's either you respond in the positive or in the negative, but it's the ability to respond. That as Christians, that we needed to respond positively. So he also said that that God gave us the earth for us, as he delegated the earth and the authority to us, that using the environment, we need to know that we are using it on behalf of our Creator, and that we have this great potential to turn things aright. So it was it was eye-opening for many participants that came. Some of them were a bit hesitant, but after hearing some of all these things, they were quite elated. And we now had an issue because the person that was supposed to come and speak for Islam didn't show up. But we also had an environmentalist who now sort of like had the two together, because he himself is a Muslim and he's an activist. So he was able to tie everything together, and at the end of the day, it was such an exciting meeting, with local leaders, from different faiths as well, a different denomination within even the Christian faith and Islam. They all attended. We have our peaks, and there was a consensus at the end of the meeting that we needed to start limiting the way we use things, forming this push for large global change in our lifestyles by pursuing these changes as living the change as taught me, for instance. I was able to push it down, push it, and we served vegan food. That was another issue. In Nigeria, people are not so used to vegan food. It's almost like it's sacrilegious for you to serve food without putting meat on it. So it was hard for people to really grasp the essence of you telling them that they don't need to eat meat again. So it was really something like the end of the day, because after some of them even said they were not going back to meat because there wasn't any much difference like that. Because at first they thought eating grass, they also made pledge. We had pledge cards where people at the end of the meeting they wrote down their pledge. It was not something that was prearranged. They wrote down their pledge on that day, and we have all this on
Douglas, I'm afraid that we're losing your connection a little.
We sent some about for living the change as a body to see. Then can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you better now. You have 30 more seconds.
Okay. Basically, what we made pledges. Everybody that came that day, we were about 33 of us. We made pledges concerning our sustainable living, and at the end, every participant was happy when going home. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Douglas. Thank you for sharing about this exciting moment in Lagos of an interfaith meeting and testing vegan food for a first time. That's quite something, and many people were smiling because they may have had similar experience in their community. We're now moving to a country that is very experienced to vegetarian food and also a bit to vegan food, and that country is India. And I'm welcoming Beulah Felix from the Lutheran congregation in Chikkabalapur in India, who will share with us about her sustainable living event. Beulah, it's your time.
Hello, everyone. I'm Beulah from India. Thank you so much for the opportunity. We had this event on 13th of October, and the name was changed for us. This event was very new to the people of my congregation. It's a unique thought. It's a very unique initiative, which made ultimately people think of what is really happening around us. The event was all about sustainable living. I emphasized more on what sustainable living is and why do we actually need sustainability in our a daily life. It's not like one day you do something and the other day you just forget it. It's not like that. You take up something, you need to continue all through your life. That is what was a main highlight of the entire event. So we started off with a small opening prayer. Reverend Dishon, who's a presbyter of our congregation, started with the lighting of the lamp and then a prayer. We had music, some hymns, which made the whole atmosphere very soothing for the event. It was like a preparation for the event. And then we had two short films shown. These short films, one was about water and the other was about oxygen depletion in the atmosphere. So both the short films were very inspiring, and the participants really loved it, and these short films helped them think of what we really need, and what is the need of the hour. And then I gave them some time they, to think, for them to think, and there was few canvas hung, so I let them draw something or write something which comes out of them. So people just took markers, pens, paint, they started writing, they started drawing, and it made them literally think of what is necessary. And after all this, I gave them few gifts, few eco-friendly gifts. Again, this made them feel very happy, and it was very inspiring because these gifts were glass bottle, and then pencils made of newspaper, and then I gave them small brochures, a manual on how to make compost at home. So these were few gifts which were given to all the participants, and at the end, and after this was oath taking. Uh, we asked all the participants to write what they want to take it up. I mean, what is a pledge that they want to take it up, and all the participants were very happy. They wrote it down. They, some of them also shared what was their decision. And after all this, we had a vegan lunch. It was very pleasant and happy moment because it was very new. All the participants had a unique experience. They were very happy and they wanted follow up events like this so that they can learn more, um, also involve many other people into such activities. So that was a feedback what I got from the participants. Best part of the whole event was I had participants of age 10 to 60. We had children and also elders. All the participants were very happy with the event, and all they wanted was a follow up. They want to learn more. So this is what change for us was. And thank you for the opportunity. Uh, Thank you so much. I can't hear you.
Thank you very much, Viola, for sharing with us about your event in India. Very inspiring indeed, such an intergenerational approach in your congregation.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're moving on. There's Second World Map. There's some more stories to share. And I'm calling Helena, who has had a relatively small event, but we really want to show the diversity of these events. She organized an interfaith dinner among theology students in New Haven in the US. So I'm calling in on Helena.
My situation was slightly different as I originally come from Germany. I just arrived in New Haven in the US in August. So I was thinking about what can I do? And one point which really impressed me being here at the Yale University is having this international community. And I figured out that there's also a really high diversity of people coming from different religious backgrounds, which I never experienced in this way in Germany. So when I talked to my flatmate about the webinar I'm doing about sustainable living and leadership, she was really interested in it as she's doing religious studies and also focusing a lot about environmental issues. So we decided together to host an interfaith dinner and made like friends, the people we met here coming from different religious backgrounds coming together. So in total we've been around 10 people, and the core of the event was first of all to get to know each other, because I actually never met someone and talked indeed with someone being Jewish, coming from Buddhist background, a Hindu. We also had two Baha'i friends who wanted to come but didn't make it in the end and shared a vegan meal. So at the beginning, we first of all learned how environmentalism plays a role within their religion and their faith. And then we came to the points, what can we do? And we had a really dynamic discussion whether individuals should change their lifestyle or it's more the part of politics. We have to change the politics so it's easier for the individuals. it was really interesting, and I had the feeling there's really a spirit of people who want to change something and to make something happen. So kind of at the end of our meeting, we not only had discussions about what does religion and faith mean to you, but also about forgiveness, being in balance with yourself, living in balance and in harmony with nature, and then how to continue. So what we're probably gonna have is we're gonna meet again next week or after a few weeks, because everyone said that they really enjoyed this interfaith discussion and would love to continue. So that's kind of my background and my event.
Thank you very much sharing for Helena, and to see those seeds growing in the students community, which is really great. We're moving on to Europe, to the Netherlands, and I'm wondering if Rianne is ready to share about her interfaith event in Groningen.
Groningen, yes, indeed. And it was actually not Groningen Stad, where Professor Steg is from, which is a vibrant city and lots of things are happening. I actually live in the rural part of Groningen, which is a province experiencing quite a lot of challenges. And story for another time is why I ended up living there. But I therefore particularly wanted to focus on that rural area and not go for the easy bit and organize something in the big city, which turned out to be a challenge, I think, both for the communities as for myself. I'll go through Caroline's questions. One is, how was the sustainable living addressed? Is I actually did put out some general invites, but like I've only lived here a couple of months now, just over a year formally, but much less in practice. So, and I did notice that there's quite a bit of new age groups, and for this particular, like living the change and general way forward, I wanted to focus on the formal faiths. So I didn't want to put out too much advertisement and attract those people who are interested, but I'm particularly keen to go for the traditional religions. So I approached people individually, and I found a couple of people who were, as individuals, really keen, but also felt a little bit as a lone voice within their communities. So in the end had 3 different religious voices, which for this region is already quite a bit. And we had really in-depth discussion as regards what are the possibilities and how to marry it, because both environmental issues are a sensitive topic because of fracking and other stuff, and also religion is sensitive, and then putting the 2 sensitive things in the same sentence. But what were the highlights is, I think it was, although small, I think it was a really constructive and positive meeting, and agreed to continue on this road, that at least people weren't individuals in their communities anymore, but that will keep on coming together and amplify each other's voice, whilst at the same time also reflecting that we do need to take the slow but steady approach as opposed to the quick one. And yeah, so what were the responses is, as I said, both environment and religion are relatively new. It's a community where if you're not 3 generations from the region, you're often called import. So although I speak Dutch, I speak it with an accent, having not lived here or in the country for 20 years, never lived in this region. So we have to be really careful, but ultimately I think I see a lot of potential, and I found it personally very satisfying, because having come from Birmingham, where you've got all the religious diversity you can imagine on the doorstep, and having worked there for a number of years and seen the success, it was a good reminder that actually, you know, shouldn't just speak to the converted, but also pick new communities and start from scratch, and then maybe practice some patience in terms of not being able to turn things around overnight. But there's some really exciting plans that we're looking for example, like a pilgrimage walk in the region with people of different faiths, and have that way. So yeah, that was it in brief. Hope that helps.
Thank you very much, Rianne, for sharing. It's so important for us to hear perspectives on the rural settings and also on in a very secular context, which some of us are living in and others not. So we really want to hear both the challenges and the successes in those different settings of faith communities and interfaith collaboration and sustainable living. The last event will be presented by Shantanu Mandal. He comes to us from the Brahma Kumaris community, and they've held 2 Eco Shanti events in India, in the south of India, in Kerala and Pune. And Shantanu, I hope that you can share in 2 minutes with us about your events. Shantanu, are you there? Okay.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. So thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to share, and I was thrilled to listen to everybody else and got so many more new ideas to conduct in the future. The first question that I was asked was sustainable living addressed during this event. We in Eco Shanti, we developed a very beautiful concept that the spirit, every spirit has a very unique nature, and the nature outside has a spirit. So there should be a connection between them. So our approach was to connect back to nature, how to have a conversation with it. And for that, the first thing that we did was an exercise called silent conversation, where we were trying to listen to our own voice, and then we tried to listen to the voice of Mother Earth. And also we tried to understand that Earth is not just the 5 elements, it's a living organism that is sustaining all of us together. And then we had a very beautiful session where people were expressing what faults they have in their lifestyle. Even though we belong to a spiritual community, we still commit a lot of mistakes, like switching on lights that we really don't need, and using more than the water that we need to wash our utensils and things like that. So everybody was given this opportunity to reflect on their lifestyle and bring out 5 things that they think they can change and should be changed. And there were very little 5 things. Like there were youngsters who decided never to use lift for going down. And there were youngsters who decided not to leave a bit of water left in the glass when they're drinking it. So these were very little things that they decided to catch upon. We showed a little video on the message of water and how water receives our messages and how it becomes friendly to us with our own thoughts. And going on to that, we also showed them some slides on how our waste is creating havoc on Earth and how our waste is creating difficulties for other species to live in. And so zero waste was another thing that we wanted to catch upon. And so we gave a plastic-free week challenge to all the participants, and around 60 of them were there who took this challenge. And then we move on to the open area in the outside from the auditorium that you can see. We went to an open amphitheater where we went barefoot, a process known as grounding, so that the participants could touch the ground and feel its heartbeat and can connect their heartbeat with the earth and vibrate positivity, peaceful vibrations with live flute music playing on. Then we had a vegan snack called Bhel Puri. And then after the success of this program, I move on to Kerala. There I had an opportunity to have another little short program. And the beauty of that program was that they earlier wanted to have the vegan breakfast in thermocol plates, which is use and throw. And I requested them not to use it because it is not use and throw. It is more like leaving a scar on earth. And so they decided on, okay, going on steel plates and banana leaves. And it is a center of our Brahma Kumaris, which is going to come up very soon. And the entire community there decided to go 90% plastic free once the center starts running. So the plastic free challenge was really a good hit. Some of them also took a resolution for becoming vegan. The bottom line was that we all together understood that spirituality and environment are not two different things. They are one thing. You cannot be environment friendly if you are not spiritual. You do not know yourself, you cannot understand environment. If you are spiritual and you don't care for environment, you are not spiritual again. So spirituality and environment are just one word, just said in two different ways. They both mean one little thing, and that is living on this sacred planet with lot of love, lot of compassion, full of understanding. That is what we all took from this, and we want to do some more events like this.
Thank you very much, Shantanu. It's great to hear that spiritual approach in your community and how you have stepped into living the change and began to have vegan commitments and having energy commitments. That's wonderful to hear. Thank you to our 6 local organizers for being brave and sharing and presenting in this group. We know that many others among the participants have done great events too, and would ask you to give us feedback through the evaluation forms that we'll send out so that we can really hear more. And we'll also continue to share your stories and your pictures on social media and in blog posts. So if you are an inspired writer, please share your 300 to 800 words blog post with us so that we can publish your story and your thoughts on living the change on our website. Thank you all, and we give big hands to the 6 presenters. Thank you. Now,
so we're going,
yes.
So we're going to move into breakout groups, and we've thought a lot about what questions we might ask you in the breakout groups, but these are the 3 questions that we'd like to invite you to think about. So first, what has most inspired and challenged you during this course? Second, which parts were most relevant to creating change in your faith community? And third, are there additional insights from your tradition, truths and insights from your tradition that would help us or could help us on this journey? So you might want to note those down, because I don't think you'll be able to see them in the breakout groups. And in a moment, you will be invited to go into a breakout group. And I think we'll have 15 minutes. Are we still giving that 15 minutes? Yeah, 15 minutes in breakout groups.
Now we have a few more minutes in this very last session, and we cannot let you go without officially acknowledging all that you have learned and how you grew in this leadership course. And I'm handing over, and really very happy that Fletcher Harper is joining us today from Indonesia, where he's currently on a field trip. So Fletcher, please share a few words with the participants.
Thanks so much, Caroline, and thanks to everyone for the opportunity to be with you on this session. I've been following with regular updates from Caroline, and it's just been tremendously exciting to hear about and to participate in that way in the work that all of us have been doing together. As I'm sure Caroline shared with you, Green Faith is an interfaith environmental organization. And our mission is to inspire and equip and mobilize people from diverse spiritual and religious backgrounds for environmental action. And I think that that's what this program is about in a very, very concrete way. I know that every time I get to take part in one of these international calls that we're privileged to do, that it's just incredibly inspiring and moving to be together with people from all over the world who share a motivation from a very deep place within themselves about working to make the world more sustainable. And I'm just very, very grateful for the leadership that each of you have shown over the past 8 weeks. I was sharing in the breakout group that I was in that to me, one of the things that makes the greatest difference has made the greatest difference is to have people who have made more ambitious or more sustainable commitments than I have to look up to and to strive to emulate. And there are some people on this call who've played that role for me. And I hope and I believe that all of you are now in different ways playing that role for other people. And I think that's tremendously important. One needs passion and enthusiasm and a sense of connectedness and openness to continue to work on this topic. And we all know that living sustainably is a journey, as well as a time of individual commitment and growth. And we are keen to continue being connected with each other around this and figuring out how we might do that. We're eager to find ways to start offering this training and this community so that more people can get connected to it. We're eager to find out ways that would be meaningful to all of you to be connected, to remain connected in the future, and to share successes and joys and challenges. I was moved during this course to make a commitment myself to eat at least 200 vegan meals this year, and to double offset all of the emissions that I couldn't avoid, and also to continue to purchase 100% renewable energy for my household. So it's been a really meaningful and good time of stretching for me. And I hope that all of you have had the experience of growth through this time together also. And I'd like to thank Caroline and Lori and Irene and Kristen and all of the guest speakers also for all of their hard work to make this such a good experience. We're going to acknowledge and celebrate your engagement with a certificate, a Green Faith certificate of participation. And in her wonderfully thorough way, Caroline has guaranteed to us all that she will send that to you once you've completed the online evaluation form. So please do complete that. We're really eager to gather information about what worked well with this and how we can make this kind of experience better for everybody in the future. But more than anything else, thank you so much for the chance to share a little bit of time together like this. And I'm very, very grateful to everyone for taking part and look forward to continuing this journey together.
Thank you so very much, Fletcher, for joining us today. And as he has just said, you will all receive your certificate. And once we send you the evaluation form and you send that back to us, you will receive immediately a wonderful Green Faith Living the Change certificate for your participation. Now is maybe a moment of taking 2 minutes to congratulate each other. It's a bit odd to have a graduation ceremony without hugging each other and taking photographs of each other, etc. But just try to imagine that virtually. And maybe you want to say thank you to someone, or maybe you want to express your emotions or your thoughts. So I invite you to use the chat bar in a very radical way and just spam it and fill it and share your final remarks with us in that chat bar. And you have 90 seconds to do that. So this is starting now.
In our tradition as Buddhists, we end every event and meals and program with a dedication of merit. And this is something that really we can all do. There's a chant, but each of us has an inner chant, I would say, to be thankful. And then we dedicate the merit, whatever we've achieved here, to others, so that it goes beyond what we've done here for ourselves and our communities, but expands outwards. So we're going to take 1 minute, and it'll be timed 1 minute for each of us to dedicate the merit of what has been happening here and in ourselves to others.
Thank you for sharing your merits. So what's next after we finish this course and this call? I want to share with you a few things that happen with Living the Change. And I really want to invite you to help us realize those, and also to share your feedback through the evaluation form so that we know what you need most at this point, what your suggestions are for growing Living the Change and for really making this a long-term, sustainable effort in faith communities all over the world. In 2018, we continue to promote and to help organize local events and making commitments to sustainable living. So this is not over, by far not. We have just started, and we call it the Time for Living the Change. So that Time for Living the Change will continue until 2nd of December, which is the start of the next United Nations Climate Change Conference, just so that you all know in your calendars when this happens. The reason for that is that we really want to empower more communities to start talking and committing to sustainable living, but also that we want to make this visible at a global scale. And we'll do so with our faith partners, our global faith partners, during the Parliament of World Religions in Toronto, Canada next week. And then at COP24, so the 24th session of the UN Climate Change Conference in Katowice in Poland in December. So it's really important that we get more commitments, that we get them, that you get them to us, and that we hear about your events, because we really want to share the stories, the commitments, the change that is happening. We want to share that with decision makers, with negotiators, with other communities, with other sectors of society, and your voice really counts here. And then in 2019, we will have the second year of our initiative, and we'll look at how to further grow this network, how to support more local engagement and continue capacity building. That's what some of you have expressed already, that we need resources, that we need more courses maybe, and need to start talking to people about sustainable living. So 2 highlights next year would be, again, the next Sustainable Living Leadership Program. I'm advertising this here because I want you to find a colleague, a friend, someone in your community to join that next course. It will be likely held in the first quarter of 2019. So relatively soon we'll send out the invitations so people can sign up, and please promote this if you found it helpful for yourself. We'll also organize a second week of Living the Change in the fall next year, so probably around the same time, October. Again, 1 week of local sustainable events. What happens in between will be communicated soon. We're finalizing our plans for 2019, and we invite you to stay connected and stay tuned on what's kind of organized at the global level. But you don't need to wait with engagement in your local community. Take that energy and that maybe those challenges and questions from your local events and invite your group to continue coming together, continue talking about sustainable living, making commitments, and think of maybe an institutional way or an informal way of how you can support each other. So don't wait for us, please move ahead. And what we will do is we will share the contacts and the participants of this group with each other. So if you feel like you would want to connect with each other, maybe continue working together, that should be well possible. We'll continue having our Google groups for communicating. And as Fletcher said earlier, we will continue collecting vegan recipes. We want to have our first Living the Change recipe book with vegan recipes and many more fun things that we'll engage with. We hope you feel invited to continuing with Living the Change in the global framework, in the local framework, in the interfaith dimension. And we look very much forward to seeing you grow more, reaching out to us and reaching out to each other to make this really a big movement. We want no less than that. Creating this new comfort zone, someone has said earlier. Thank you very much. We have a last moment of a spiritual closing and sending you off that Irene will of course lead. Before that, I want to thank all my colleagues, Laurie, Kristin, Irene, Fletcher, Nana and Nettie, who are not on this call today, and everyone who helped facilitating, preparing, following up on this course. So it's been a joy of doing this together as a multi-faith team. And to all the participants, I want to express my gratitude for joining. On a personal note, I might not be there next year because I'm going into maternity leave in 4 weeks, but we'll have wonderful successors who will replace me during that time. So looking forward to seeing all of you in a bit, in 1 year from now. Thank you all very much, and time for spiritual closing.
Thank you. This is a quote from The Path is the Goal by Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche. The path is a goal is really another way of saying living the change. You look up at the sky and see the stars, thousands of millions of them. They seem to be very complicated. It's difficult to name them, find out what they are, and so on. But still, it's the simple sky. The complexity and the simplicity amount to the same thing. Confusion and complexity are the expression of simplicity. The message is, keep it simple. Thank you all. Keep up the great work.